Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
So something I've realized about the healing collective, or just the verbiage around healing or relationships, is that a lot of it is very performative. And if you've said some of these things, it may not register as that. But I'm down to unpack it, because why not? Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. It's your boy. And I have been on quite the mental, emotional, energetic, and physical journey as of late. And I've just been learning a lot, obviously, about myself, about others, about what I desire from life, about what I've been showing up with in life, and also the lack thereof, if I'm being real with y'all. And, I think I have navigated this world in a very interesting way. Not better, not worse, but just interesting. And because of that, it's kind of like, picking up on a lot of things, and I guess working with personal development and in relationship dynamics, there are a lot more things that stick out to me, right? Because I'm in the business of it. When I sit down with a client, my goal is to listen to what they are not saying. When I'm working with clients on particular things, relationships, their self-image, self-view, a lot of times is not about the spilled milk. That's what I love to tell people, is never about the spilled milk when you step into a space of conflict or trying to resolve things or trying to unpack things, which is why usually when a client comes to me and they tell me what they are going through, intuitively I pick up on something else. And it's so cool, right? Because we end up getting to the grit of it and we work with that versus just the surface stuff, because that's easy. But something more importantly that I have just listened to and just kind of like had my finger on is almost like we have a performative view of how we navigate people, places, and things, or we have a performative approach. We do a lot of virtual signaling, first of all. One thing in particular I was looking at, I was reading something recently, or multiple times, and people have talked about like friendship breakups, for example, how friendship breakups are so hard and how they are so much worse than romantic breakups. And the first times I heard this, I was like, yeah, that's true. Actually, that's probably pretty damn heavy. And then I thought about it and I was like, you know what? a lot of people aren't tripping about the ending of a friendship. They're tripping about the access they no longer have. I think we as people, we can be very reactive versus proactive, right? And especially when it comes to relational dynamics and, again, friendship, romantic partnership, we will often sideline, sacrifice, or even throw overboard our friendships for a romantic partnership, right? Especially if our identity is so rooted in that. And on social media, books, therapy, couples therapy, you name it, there are all these solutions to keep relationships, romantic relationships. And some of them are very unhealthy. Like, if you actually listen to it, a lot of times it's like people being coached into emotional abuse, emotional neglect. Not to say that that's everything, right? But also just kind of like this lack of accountability. And then we touch into attachment styles. That's another thing. Where it's like one person is being forced to cater to somebody else's weaponized incompetence. And you can pick a side, right? Anxious is not necessarily any more innocent than avoidant. And avoidant is not more innocent or needing of emotional support than anxious, right? It's just a matter of fairness, balance, and accountability. And attachment styles also exist in friendships too. We just don't talk about it. And which is why we run into a lot of issues within relationship dynamics. And, we'll just throw things away versus actually addressing it. But, that whole statement about, friendship breakups being harder and people really going through it. The funny thing is that it's only talked about in hindsight, right? And it sounds so thoughtful, so thought provoking, so emotionally raw. But a lot of times, and more often than not, you watch how people treat their friendships, and we can be so lazy. We can be so lazy, so entitled, so careless, so superficial, um, so just thoughtless about our friends. And then if you go deeper into what your friendship relationships actually look like, that's telling too. Like what your value system is founded on will determine how you function in those relationships. And there is truth to that. I think the ending of a friendship really does suck. The reason why is because there's often no rooms that are made for working through that, right? When a friendship ends, no one really cares to really talk about it. It's just like, oh yeah, you'll find another one. It is what it is. When a romantic partnership ends, it's different. And I've talked about this before. There's even couples therapy, right? There's therapy for that. I saw this post recently where somebody was like, if your friend asked you to go to therapy, would you go with them? And somebody was like, no, I'm not paying for that. And I just looked at that and I forget what they said afterwards. They're like, no, I'm not paying for that because this person isn't my partner or something to that degree. And basically what they were saying is like, yeah, friendship doesn't really matter to me that much. Like, I don't give a damn. If we end we end. Not that this person is looking to work through some emotional roadblocks that are existing in our friendship and that are impacting us. It's like, no, this person is my partner, so I don't give a damn. But we fail to realize, or we fail to understand and accept and actually really focus and emphasize that how you show up in your friendships will reflect the kind of partnership you exist in, also will reflect how you behave in that partnership. People don't change just because labels do. And just because you're in this intimate relationship with this person that's sexually intimate does not mean the other components are not necessary. And I think there is this kind of binary black and white thinking, which is why people end up in such dysfunctional romantic partnerships because they're not taking a look at their behavior before that. You will have friends before you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Okay. You will have relationships that you need to work through properly in a healthy way before you step into a romantic partnership. And I can guarantee you, whatever skill set you have, whatever skill set you've been sharpening or not, will function and exist in your romantic partnership. People think that automatically, oh, because I'm in this new space and this is what I define as successful or my goal in life, that things just automatically change. That's not it.
Walmart Business is in the business of helping your business, regardless of whether you're building bridges, building spreadsheets, or building lesson plans. Ooh, that looks fun. Walmart Business can help save you time, money, and hassle so you can focus on what you're building instead of what your supply closet is missing. In short, we take care of business so you can do more with yours. We're the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com.
You're going to pull from your patterns, right? You are going to rely on those patterns heavily because change is uncomfortable. Okay. But yeah, when I saw that some people agreed. They were like, yeah, I think I would go to friendship therapy. I've even thought about it. I was like, if there were spaces for friendships, like therapy spaces, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's because of my standard of friendship, right? Couples therapy, a lot of times people go to therapy when things are going wrong, right? But by the time you're there, that means that things have been kind of, I don't want to say irreparable, but like they've reached a certain point where now you're bringing in a third party. But by the time you decide to bring in that third party, that means that there are a lot of wounds, there are a lot of cuts that have gone unhealed. And we have to understand that about friendship too. Like friendship breakups, I don't think just happen out of nowhere. All right. Sometimes we take for granted somebody's patience. We take for granted somebody's kindness. We take for granted somebody's presence or consistency. Okay. And then when it's no longer there, people will be like, oh yeah, my friend just stopped talking to me for no reason. Sometimes that's not the case. If you listen to how people treat friendship, again, I won't respond for weeks, but that doesn't mean we aren't friends. Actually, it probably does for some people. Your definition of effort, or your willingness in terms of what effort you're willing to output is not always congruent. It's not always conducive to other relationships, right? Especially if you show what level of effort you're willing to put elsewhere. I think we need to understand is that people don't need to necessarily acclimate or acquiesce to our low maintenance desires, right? And a lot of times it's not high maintenance that people are, it's high intention. And this is coming from doing the work. I'm not just saying that, what is right and what is wrong, but I think there are a lot of people who are moving through the world with a lack of actual intentional work being put in to themselves or just their relationships. And it shows. You get me? That whole thing of like, hey, we may not talk all the time, but if you need me in the middle of the night, I'll respond. If you are telling somebody that you never respond to messages or weeks later, why would they believe that in the middle of the night you'd pick up your phone? It's so contradictory. And that's what I mean by sometimes it's very performative. Like we want to sound like we are a savior or that we're reliable or that we're willing to show up. But truth be told, we're not. And if you actually say that to a person who's listening to the context clues, who studies behavior, or who's just, good at pattern recognition, they may clock that. And they're like, yeah, no, you're not. You are not present, right? You are not that kind of person. We tried this. You can't even respond to a simple text message, right? Because it's all based on what you deem important. And if you're so comfortable going a certain amount of time without responding to messages or just disregarding them, yeah, no, you're not going to respond to this. I don't believe you to. And some people may argue that, but hey, here's the deal. It's like, what are your patterns saying? Not what are you saying in the moment of convenience when you are not being challenged, right? It is so good to ask yourself, do I want to be liked or do I want to be valued? That's another thing I think people fail to realize. It's like when you were showing up in the world and you just, you talk about always giving of yourself and, you want to be the person that people can rely on, et cetera, but you are always being kind of overlooked or dismissed. and you still continue to show up. Like, guys, that is not a noble quality. At some point, that just shows that you lack self-respect, right? If you keep showing up for people who are not present for you, who keep, betraying you, who keep, taking you for granted, that's not noble. That shows that you having unwillingness to stand up for yourself. Okay. It's so crucial that we just kind of like hone in on what it is that we are saying we desire and what we are actually creating in our lives. Even when it comes to like just wanting to improve, what do you say you actually want out of life versus what you show up with? Right? Because comfort is a very comfortable experience. And when we are stuck in our ways, it's very hard to get out of our way. Very difficult to get out of our own way. And it shows, right? I think even for myself, I've just kind of been sitting with, what does value look like for me as of late? In terms of my work, in terms of my relationships, just in terms of what I want to do. What does value actually look and feel like? And some things haven't really resonated as of late. Some things just have not resonated. And when I show up, I ask myself, man, well, what am I willing to change? What am I willing to change? And one of the things I've been changing recently is just kind of like my understanding of where people are and my understanding of dialogue and just listening, and not feeling the need to pressure anything or anyone, because I don't like being pressured, so being that I know I don't like that, it's making sure I'm not doing it to someone else. Mel Robbins talks about the let them theory, but letting people do what they want does not mean you stay stuck. It just means you allow people to function how they want to function, and you allow yourself the same opportunity. But you have to be more honest. You have to ask yourself, are the things that I'm saying performative, right? Everybody's busy. That's another thing. Busy with what? Busyness is just not one-sided. Everybody has things to do, and I think sometimes we forget that because we are so self-centered and we think that our time is the most important and that the things that other people have going on in life are not as significant, which is why they might have time for us. And that's BS, right? That is BS. I always say, and I do realize, like, no matter what you say, I can promise you, your relationships will hold up a mirror to how you function and how you show up. Period. So I really challenge you to just ask yourself, who am I really? Like, am I trying to posture as self-righteous, better than, more enlightened? And also the people that are the most healed don't need to go telling everybody that they are. It just shows, and how they treat other people is a great indicator of how far along they are. Just a lot I've been like paying attention to. But that, the friendship breakup thing I just found very interesting. I'm like, oh man, this is so layered, but it's like people are still not doing anything about it, which lets us know in a lot of ways it's just virtual signaling. Sometimes we grieve the loss of access. We don't grieve the opportunity to be accountable. Right? So I think that's all I got. This is just like a little mind dump, to catch you guys up on where life has been recently, and just, holding up a mirror. It is Gemini season, and I did a 5-day mirror challenge, if you will, and it just required us, all the participants, to take a good look at themselves, and it was really cool. It was really eye-opening, and if any of the listeners participated in this, I'm proud of you. It was a really good time, and there's more to come from that. All right. So I'll leave you guys with that. Just some things to think about, things to chew on. But in the meantime, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I have a couple more spots for clients I'm taking on about 3 more before I close out my roster. So if you want to get on the roster and you want to do some actual work with some permanent change, the link is in the bio. Let's get this work, y'all. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Take flight.